Hey everybody, Tim here, coming at you with a brand new show, Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot episode of Future Man. I absolutely love this show, and it's kind of just what I need. It's really funny, super raunchy, but it also is like a super nerd show, like all of the references and everything going on in it. Absolutely love this show. And that's why, like, I've already watched the first season and thought it was great, and then I was like, you know what, I'm doing these reviews, may as well, like, just do it again, start from the first episode and go. So first of all, the show is actually brought to you by Seth Rogen, which I think is fucking awesome. So I know he directed part of them, or at least helped direct it, executive producer, and then he does show up in the end of season 2. So presumably he's going to be in season 3. But that alone kind of shows you the type of humor that's going to go on. And I mean, Seth Rogen alone has a lot of references. He's almost like Seth MacFarlane. So I'll talk about the first thing I want to talk about is the three main actors that kind of pop up in there. The first that I want to talk about is Haley Joel Osment. Haley Joel Osment's like 3 months older than I am. And so the first movie that I can clearly remember watching beginning to end and following is actually Forrest Gump. Like, Forrest Gump made a huge impression on me as a child. Like, granted, I didn't get a lot of the jokes or anything like that, but I do remember sitting there watching it, and then I saw it again, and I was like, I remember this movie. So one of the things that also stands out to me is when I got to the end of that movie, at least years later as an adult, I got to the end of the movie rewatching it again, and when Haley Joel Osment pops up at the end as Forrest Jr., I was like, holy shit, like that's how old I was when this movie came out. So, I don't know, that ever since then, like Haley Joel Osment, he had a great career, like Sixth Sense, Pay It Forward, even Secondhand Lions, stuff like that, being a voice actor in games and stuff. He's a terrific actor, and he kind of like disappeared for a little bit, and he's been really kind of popping up again in a lot of different movies, especially Kevin Smith movies. And so when he pops up in this, I freaked out. I was super excited and super happy to see him. So we got Haley Joel Osment in there. Keith David, amazing actor. I've said before, like, when I have money and time, I love to go to conventions. I go to the one here in Portland, and I usually try to go up to the one up in Seattle, Washington, as often as I can. It is my dream to meet Keith David at some point at one of those two conventions. So, again, growing up, like, everything from being a kid to being an adult, Keith David has been there and done that. Like, as a live action, honestly, I think probably the first thing I remember him in, one of my favorite movies is The Thing. Obviously, that goes right into They Live, Requiem for a Dream, all sorts of stuff. Terrific actor, super funny. But honestly, probably the first thing I ever saw him in unconsciously was probably Gargoyles. Like, the voice of Goliath, amazing. Like, as soon as I hear his voice, and he does so much like voiceover work, like even like the narrator from Princess Mononoke and stuff like that, he's amazing. So when he popped up in this again, I was like, this just keeps getting better. Like, how many people can we get into this one show? Which brings us to the main character, Josh Hutcherson. Amazing. Like, he's a few years younger than I am, but probably the first thing I saw him in was Zathura, Bridge to Terabithia, The Kids Are All Right. Like, he did a lot of stuff. And then, boom, what was his big breakout? The Hunger Games came out, shot up there. He's everywhere now. And then when I saw that he was in this, like, by the time we got to the Hunger Games and everything, he's like freakishly adorable. Like, he's super cute. And then I was like, oh, he's going to be in this. And that's actually kind of what brought my attention to this show. The first season was already over. And they're like, Josh Hutcherson does full frontal nudity. And I was like, what is this show? Say it again. What's it about? So I went and watched it. And of course, like, when I get to that episode and that scene, it's like, really? Like, that's what everybody was freaking out about? But still, like, that's what got me into it. And then, of course, just watching this first episode, raunchy, funny, a type of role I hadn't really seen him in before, and he does phenomenal in it. So, to talk about the first three actors, that's about it. I loved it. To talk about the actual show, yes, I'm actually going to get to the point. The show itself is about Josh Hutcherson plays this janitor he beats an unbeatable game, which of course was sent back in time to find the Chosen One, and now he basically has to stop a war. So from the opening scene where he's dreaming of being Future Man is terrific and super funny. I'm not a huge gamer, but I can still kind of pick up on a lot of the jokes. The unbeatable game, the biotic wars. I love the whole, like, him talking about, like, how Mario is a cop-out, like, why would you build tunnels? It's destiny. Instantly, the dialogue is great. So, we see him, like, go to level 83, the last level, gets his ass kicked, and it's like, okay, so that's important. That's the premise of the episode. We meet Haley Joel Osment as Camilla, we meet Keith David as Cronish, who has herpes, and that's the whole point of his industry is trying to find a cure for the cold sore, which, like, I don't even know, like, a high percentage, a majority of the population has herpes. So I think that's kind of interesting. When he finally beats the game, and by stripping all of his stuff, and he's, like, able to move faster and stuff, and he beats the game, does what nobody else can do, what does he do? He fucking jerks it right there. And I was like, this show is immediately, like, fantastic, where he's sitting there jerking it, looking at the big poster of Tiger, and even then, when he's doing it, and he's just, like, coming up with the dialogue, and wait, male cats can't be in heat, fuck it, doesn't matter, and he just keeps going, and I fucking love this show so much. And then when he finally comes, and it's everywhere, all over Wolf, and he's like, and Tiger's just like, it's a little bit of cum, it's a lot of cum. Like, instantly, I was like, this is the type of show that I need in my life right now. Like, I love sci-fi, and I love a lot of the wholesome shows. Like, you're not going to see stuff like this in Star Trek. So, I mean, maybe with Discovery now, but whatever. And, I mean, it's like, basically, it's almost like Orville, but that one step up. It's even raunchier. Their whole dialogue of, like, we're going to 69. Well, what about him? Oh, we're going to 69, too. What? So already, we got gay jokes coming in, and sure enough, we're going to go to 1969. Gets his ass kicked by his family, which I love the, like, Back to the Future thing going on. Like, how is this going to impact the future where, like, somebody broke into his house and they had to beat him up? Because you can tell, like, little things like Back to the Future were super important. Like, we go to the Twin Pine Mall to the Lone Pine Mall, stuff like that. And you can tell, like, little stuff's going to be changing and to kind of watch out for it. The whole restaurant, and that's where we learn that Cronish created the biotics. Somehow, his cure for herpes completely changes everything. We get like a Terminator type situation going on where it wipes everybody out. And then there at the end where they blow up the cop car with Santiago and Skarsgård in there. Again, like when you first watch it, you're like, oh, they blew up a cop car. Super important that I didn't realize later on. Already, just the action sequences, the dialogue, the comedy, the actors, everything about this show is just comedy gold. So I'm curious, for those who have seen it, what did you guys think? Thank you guys for subscribing and watching, and I will see you guys next time for episode 2, Herpy Fully Loaded.